Fourth, regulations and frameworks. Well, certainly in HE, there are some regulatory issues now that are absolutely pressing in completely contrary direction. If we had as a vision the notion of a credit framework that allowed people, a student, to say, I'll do a year in Russell's College in Crawley on something that's appropriate, and then I want to continue this award by finishing it off in Chichester or Hastings, certainly in HE. The way the funding system is working, I'm not saying this is intentional, will be to make that much more difficult, because without being too technical, the notion of student control numbers that are going to ration the number of students who can be in the system and get their loans, and locking those up individual institutions and not making them portable, is already causing a lot of us, institutions around this table, to think quite hard about how we can maintain top-ups and free movement and linking. So there is something here that we, I know it's people like me, so I'm not inviting you to go on a march or please don't. It takes too much time. But people like me do need to talk with the funding councils to say, do you really mean to have a system that works like that? Or are there other ways in which we can maintain the control of financial economy to have, while allowing the learners to move freely within a reasonable number of levels of entitlement between institutions? And it actually will be quite hard. It'll be much harder to achieve and pursue some of the credit issues that Jerry was talking about if we don't have that. So that's a problem, and it's an immediate problem. It will start hitting us quite soon. I mean, there's a bit of it around already. So there's this kind of lockdown that we need to deal with. Turn it around the other way. Okay, we need to deal with that, but let's assume we can find a way through that or negotiate that. The question then is the other way. What are the frameworks we need for the future to enable the kind of vision that Jerry was talking about? Well, clearly, the kind of partnership and structure reflected in this room and its predecessor bodies is part of that. In Sussex, not to make it too local, there is a very, very strong and very powerful coalition of colleges, FE Sussex, that Russ is currently chairing, which certainly to the universities is a huge benefit in knowing, as well as talking to individual colleges, we can reflect together on those issues. And I think the question of how that is taken forward, how that can be a place to frame relationships is important. So we'll need to keep and sustain those frameworks. They've got to be frameworks, of course, that will relate to what we're trying to achieve. But I think some of those elements are there, and today will help probably some of us see how what we've done in the past will mutate and change into what we need in the future. Behind that, of course, we need to recognise that in order to make these things work, there's a range of skills that are needed. There's a skill that needs to design these kind of structures, and we've got a lot of capacity with that. We need to make sure we don't lose it. And there's the skills needed to deliver some of the issues that people are going to talk about later in workshops, about guidance and advice and understanding, and of course the more generic things behind that, the patience, the wisdom, the empathy, and not being passionate. Give me a digression. If you ever come to reply to me for a job not an interview panel, I can give you a tip. I will ask you this question. Which of the following three words best describes your approach to management, teaching, and learning? Passionate, dispassionate, compassionate. And everybody else is passionate, which I think is completely the wrong answer, because passionate means can easily move to anger. I prefer dispassionate. So passion in the right place, but dispassionate, which actually means objective, calm, clear, that's what we need in the prize. So patience, guidance, advice, clarity, wisdom, all those things. But we need to foster them. We'll need to have ways of bringing new people on, in addition to those of us in this room with those skills, understanding what we're trying to do. And there are things within the current structures or the current ideologies which may mitigate against that. So we'll need to be careful and find ways of doing it.